Welcome to episode 8 of the Torah Sweets podcast. I'm Mendel Berlin, torahsweets@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us. This week's podcast is sponsored Le'ilu Nishmas Tirza Bas Yitzchak. Thank you to the Weisel family for sponsoring. So there's a famous routine the comedian Jack Benny did in the 1930s. He goes outside to take a break from a party, probably smoking break, and all of a sudden this thug, this criminal, comes to him and he puts his gun up and he says, "Hey, you there, your money or your life?" And Jack Benny standing there not responding. So the thug goes again, he says, "Did you hear me? I said your money or your life. Which one is it gonna be?" Still completely quiet, no response. Finally, the guy ready to pull the trigger, he says, "Last chance. Tell me, what is it gonna be, your money or your life?" And then Jack Benny looks at him and he says, "Hold on, I'm thinking." We live in a generation where thinking has become very much a premium activity. Not so many people think anymore. Even in the news today, all people are doing an instant reaction, rapid reaction. As soon as something happens, everybody feels like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, let's react to what's going on, especially with the president and his actions today. It's something that has become an epidemic. There's almost no thought involved before we do something or say something. In this week's Parashat Vayachi, we find that Yaakov Avinu gives brachas and gives advice to his sons. And one of the brachas he gives is to Ruvain, his firstborn. And what's Ruvain's bracha? Ruvain's advice? Yaakov says, "Pachas kamayim." Reuven, you are impetuous like water. What is this referring to? This is referring to an incident earlier in the Sefer Bereshis when Reuven decided to move his father's bed into Leah's tent, where originally was in Bilhah's tent after Rachel passed away. And it was a decision that was made in a certain impetuous way. And Reuven Feinstein actually mentions that it's not the only time that Reuven did something that was impetuous, something that was done in haste. When, for example, Yaakov asked Binyamin to be brought back, who was going to bring him back? So Reuven right away jumped the gun and he said, "If I don't bring back Binyamin from Yosef, from the viceroy, you could put my two sons to death." So that was a response that was not lacking the proper amount of thought and reflection. We learn everything, all our midos, all the things that we need to know in our lives, we learn from our avos and we learn from the Torah. So the Torah tells us about being deliberate in judgment. Pirkei Avos actually talks about this. We have to think about things before we decide to open our mouth or before we decide to do something. We have to look at all the different options that are on the table. And like a chess player, like a chess professional, we have to sometimes think a few moves ahead. What's going to cause? Haroyas Hanolet, what's going to cause the situation to happen? So the opposite of the Jack Benny story, actually, very interestingly, is the story of Rabbi Elyashiv, that one time a delegation of people came to speak to him in Israel, and they wanted to know if a certain child should be taken out of a yeshiva because he had special needs. And the Rav asked the question to Rabbi Elyashiv, and there was no response. So thinking that he didn't hear the story, didn't hear the question, he asked him again. There was still no response. And finally, a third time, he said it again. And Rabbi Elyashiv stopped him at that point. He said, I heard your question. I'm trying to think. Right? When we speak to people and they don't respond to us right away, or we text somebody or WhatsApp somebody and they don't reply right away, we're thinking like, what's going on? But sometimes people actually have to think about what to say. A reaction needs thought. And later on, we find that the tribe of Reuven actually learned this lesson a little bit too much. And when there was a discussion whether to go to the other side of the Jordan or not, they didn't reply at all. So they were kind of passive. The idea is in life, we're supposed to act with alacrity, we're supposed to act with excitement, but we're really supposed to think. What is going to be the end result, the effect of the actions that we do? And very often we could prevent a lot of pain and a lot of mistakes if we take the time and think about our next move. Thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom.